What is up, guys? Fahir here with another cool 3D game tutorial, and this time it is a 3D beat 'em up game where we are going to learn how to create combos with punches and kicks and how can we combine them together to attack our enemies and defeat them. So a lot of cool stuff is gonna happen in this game. And before I proceed to show you the game, I want to give a big shout out to Osarion, the developer who gave us these assets so that I can create this tutorial for you and I can provide these assets to you to use them for this tutorial. Now pay attention, this is for educational purposes only. I will put that in the description. I will put that also in a text file in the asset zip file. Now you can also check the developer's website, or actually this asset, which is on the asset store. I will put a link in the description below. If you're feeling generous enough to support the developer, you can get this asset. You will learn a lot of cool features because there are a lot more features in his asset that I did not implement. And you can learn from that. So you can see the source code, you can learn from it, which is really cool, and I advise this a lot. This is not an affiliate link, which means if you purchase this asset, I will not get a commission. I'm just trying to help the developer out because he was very kind to provide these assets for us to learn from his project. Also, you can check out his Kickstarter, which is even better. So let us help this developer bring this game to life. This is a really cool game. You can click the preview to see the game. I will put a link in the description below. And if you scroll down, you have a tier where if you donate, you can put your name inside of the game. Now, how cool is that to have your name in a really, really cool game? Now, just hit the play button here, preview the game. There's also a demo available for you to test it out. So if you're feeling generous, let us help this developer to bring this game to life because he was really generous for us by providing these assets for us to learn. So now I am going to preview the game and let's see what we are gonna learn. So I'm going to hit the play button and the enemies are gonna start coming from the right side. We can chain combos, we have punches, and let me just lower the volume for the BG music. We have punches and we have kicks. Pay attention, the enemy now is going to attack me and he is going to lower my health. Pay attention to the top left corner. Now I can attack the enemy and I will be able to knock him down as well, but not every time. I have randomized that. We will see in the code. Now pay attention, I'm gonna attack him and I knocked him down and now he fell down and you saw the camera shake effect. So now I'm going to kick him, but nothing happened. I did not knock him down because, as I said, I'm going to randomize that. And I'm going to move away from him. He's going to start chasing me. And he has his own UI, or actually AI, artificial intelligence, not UI. And we're going to see how we're going to create that. And you see, every time he knocks down, we are going to shake the camera. You see that cool effect? And we also hear a camera, or actually, when he falls on the ground, that sound. And when I kill him, a new enemy will start spawning. So now I think he is almost ready to die. And yeah, he died. So you see the enemy died, he fell down, now he's gonna go away and another enemy is going to spawn and come here. And as you can see, I have these combos. So I have punch, punch, punch. So I have 3 combos, punch, punch, punch. I have punch, kick, kick. And I have punch, punch, kick, kick, you see? And we are going to see how are we going to create all of these effects. So everything here that you just saw, we're going to see how are we going to create that. And this is a really cool game. We're gonna learn a lot of cool stuff. And yeah, let's get started. And also don't forget that you can download the assets for this game. Link will be in the description below. Enjoy. I am in a new 3D project, and the first thing that we're gonna do, as always, is import our assets. And here are the assets. You will be able to download them from my website. Link is in the description below, or simply go on awesometuts.com, enter your email address, and you will receive a link where you will be able to download these assets. And not only these assets, but every asset for all tutorials that I have on my channel and for all future tutorials. So it's really important that you keep that link along with you, bookmark it, or whatever you want to do. Now, inside of these assets, as you can see, we have the models, prefabs, shaders. Simply select all of them and drag and drop them right here in Unity and simply release the button and Unity will start importing them. Now, of course, sometimes it does not start right away, but when you see this plus button, as you saw it. Now when you release the button, you will be able to import the asset. Sometimes it plays with me like this, but this is not important. Simply drag and drop it and the import will start. What is important for you to know that you can only use these assets for educational purposes. You can only follow this tutorial with these assets. You cannot create your games and upload them online with these assets. You cannot sell these assets to other people or distribute them, meaning sharing them with other people. You will only be able to download them from my website and use them to follow this tutorial. So please remember that and respect the owner's rights. Anyways, now that we have imported all of these assets, the first thing that we're gonna do is go into the prefabs folder. I have already saved these environment and level colliders. Now this is going to be our level, so I'm gonna drag and drop this environment right here, and this is that environment. This is our level. Now I'm also going to select the main camera here, because if I go in the game tab, this is what we see with the main camera. I'm going to reposition it, so X is gonna be 6, 2.5 for the Y, and 4.42 for the Z. Now, of course, I'm also going to set the rotation. For X is going to be 4 and 180 for the Y. And voila, this is going to be our environment as you see right here. I'm also going to select the directional light and set the intensity lower, maybe, I don't know, 0.1. And it looks like it's some kind of a dark alley. Now, also, you see this in the background, this blue thing, this is actually the sky. So what I'm gonna do with this sky is I'm going to select it and I'm going to resize it. So I'm gonna resize it a little bit so that it fills the whole screen. So probably I'm gonna set the scale Y at 10. As you can see, maybe resize a little bit on the X-axis as well, but that is not important. I don't know, we can set it maybe at 4. Yeah, 4 is okay, because we're gonna have a static camera. Our camera is not gonna move. This is where the camera is going to be, and we're going to leave it like that. The enemies are gonna come from the right side, player is gonna be on the left side, and this is going to be our game. Now, this level colliders, this second prefab that you see here, is because when we import the player and put him right there, he will fall through the ground. So what I'm gonna do is simply add these level colliders, as you can see, which will not allow the player, and as you can assume, I already created this and prepared it. So it will not allow the player to go outside of here, as you can see, outside of the bounds here. So he will be able to go towards or to here and not go outside. And here he will be able to go, well, somewhere to here. And he will not go outside of the camera's view. That's why we're going to add the environment and level colliders. And I'm going to right click in the prefabs folder and create a folder. This is going to be our level, and drag and drop these two prefabs inside of the level. So what is the next thing to do? Let's go into models and go into the player and model and player rig. So simply drag and drop the player rig, and I'm going to take the player. So X is going to be number 9, Y is going to be 0, actually 0, and the Z is going to be negative 0.81 to put the player somewhere around here. Now this is our player, as you can see. So let me just go into the game tab. Voila, this is our player. And he is a 3D model, as you can see. I'm going to change this from player rig to player child. You will see in a moment why. Because we're going to right click, create an empty game object, and let me just copy the component values, and I'm going to paste them. So paste component values, voila. And this is going to be our player. So player like this, and take the child and put it as a child of the player game object, which is an empty game object. Now we will start editing that, but don't worry, before we actually do the editing, what we are going to do is we're going to click on this drop down list for the player child and select this character, this right here. We need to add a material for him. So go back in the player folder, and here we have textures, and here you see we have the matte cap skin, we have the player material, here it is. We also have the player AO. These are the materials that you're going to attach on the player. So simply drag and drop that and attach it on the player. Now this is not how I want the player to be. Instead, we're going to go into the shaders, and we talked about 3D or materials and how to make our 3D models look good. I have that in the first person shooter tutorial. I have that in the 3D fight game tutorial as well, so everything is the same, and I encourage you to practice. So play with the shaders. Now of course here we have imported some of our own shaders, as you can see here. So we have these shaders that are imported, and if I go back here and textures for the player, select the material, we're gonna go from the standard shader and go here into the custom, and we're going to select the matte cap additive. This is the one that we're gonna select. Now, in order for this one to work, we also need to attach this matte cap skin right here. So put it right here. And the last one is going to be this one, player 1_AO. Voila. You see now how our player looks like. So if I go here in the game, pay attention how the player looks like. It looks beautiful. The lightning goes very nice on him, and now when I go into the game tab, I think the game already looks a little bit cool. So what we're gonna do next? Well, first of all, select the player top game object, the parent one. And for the parent, we are going to attach a couple of components, with the first one being a capsule collider. So go here and filter under add component, filter for capsule collider. Now, when you are working, I need to mention this. When you're working with your games and you're attaching colliders, pay attention which colliders you're attaching. As you can see here, we have a capsule collider 2D and we have a capsule collider. Capsule collider is for 3D. Now, I'm still not sure why Unity does not add capsule collider 3D, because it added 2D for this one so that it will be differentiated. But anyways, you can also differentiate them like this, but a lot of people get confused. They attach a 2D collider on a 3D game object, then they have issues. So attach the capsule collider, not the 2D one, but simply capsule collider. Now the radius of the collider is going to be equal to 0.3 and the height is going to be 1.8, voila. But we're also going to offset the center Y. So offset the center Y to 0.85. And by the way, I just thought if I talk too fast for the camera's position. So X is 6, Y is 2.5, 4.42 for Z. Rotation X is 4 and rotation Y is 180. You can pause the video right now. So pause the video and copy and paste those values. Anyways, this is for our rotation. Now I'm also going to go here and select a rigid body component, same as with the collider. So 2D is for 2D game objects, 3D is simply rigid body. So attach the rigid body. Now the mass, I'm going to set it at 3. Angular drag, we don't need that. And for the constraints, we are going to freeze the rotation on X, Y, and Z axis. So freeze the rotation on X, Y, and Z. So now that we have that done, the next thing that we're going to do is create the animations for our player. As you can see here, we have these animations. They're already done. Now I'm going to right click here in the player folder and I'm going to create an animator controller, and this one is going to be our player controller. And for the player controller, we're simply going to attach it on the player child game object. So drag and drop that on the player child game object. So it's going to be player child game object, and drag and drop it. Okay, so let's go into the animator tab. If you don't have the animator tab, and I talk this millions of times, if you want to have a layout like I have, you can go here in window, and under animation you have the animation and you have the animator tab. And then when you have them, for example, when you click on it, if it's not on the tabs, it can be floating like this, for example. You can dock it wherever you want. So simply select it and dock it, and voila, it stays here. And then you can go here at the top right corner where it says layout, and you can save the layout. Click here, save, give it a name and click save, and I saved my layout here. So whenever I click on that, I will have a layout like this because I already saved it. Voila, simple as that. So selecting the player child, let's go here. So what are the animations that we're going to have? First of all, I'm going to select here the any state. So any state, I'm going to move it here, and I'm going to right click here and create an empty state. Now this empty state, as you can see, automatically it has a name, new state. So I'm going to click on it and I'm going to go here and rename it to idle. So we're going to rename it to idle. And let's go here inside of our animations, or actually inside of the project. and going inside of our player folder. So let me just resize this. So player, here it is, animations. And now we have here the idle animation for our player. So this is the idle one that we want, this one right here. I can take the animator and put the panel here at the bottom right corner. So let me drag this here so that I can see it clearly. Now for the idle, click on it here and drag and drop the idle inside of this motion. Voila! So now we have the idle animation. If I were to run the game right now, pay attention into the game tab, you will see the player, as you can see. So player is at the bottom left corner of the camera. He is playing his idle animation. Of course, we are not going to only have the idle animation. I'm going to right click here and create an empty state. We are also going to have our walk animation. So for the player walk animation, we are going to select the player walk. So walk, and let's go here. Let me just resize this and find the walk animation. Here it is. And here we have it. So here we have our player walk animation. Now, some animations, we are going to duplicate them. Player walk is one of those animations. And in fact, I'm going to duplicate all animations right now. We will see later on. So simply select it, Command+D, and duplicate it and rename it to player walk. So simply rename it to player walk. We are also going to duplicate the attack animations. We're going to have kick 1, duplicate it, and I'm going to rename it to player kick 1. We're also going to duplicate our kick 2. So here it is, Command+D. So select the animations. You can see here in the project tab, I'm selecting the animation, and while it's selected, I'm going to hold Command and press D. On Windows, it's Control D, or you can go under Edit and duplicate. Here it is, and you can see here the shortcut. So this one is going to be player kick 2. We are also going to duplicate all punches. So punch attack. So let me just go find where they are. So it's player punch combo. Here it is. So we have punch 1, 2, and 3. Duplicate 1, duplicate 2, and duplicate 3. And of course, rename them. So here we're going to have player punch 1, player punch 2, and lastly, player punch 3. And we are also going to have our death animation. So let me just find that one. It's on top, player death, and duplicate it, and voila. So I'm going to select it and I'm going to rename it to player death animation. So these are the animations that we're going to duplicate: death, kick 1 and 2, punch 1, 2, and 3, and the walk animation. So simply what you're going to do now, go back here inside of the animator, select the walk animation, and drag and drop our player walk right there. Voila. So now we will also be able to walk. And of course, we have other animations. So right here, I'm going to create an empty state. And this one is going to be our punch 1. So punch 1. And I'm going to duplicate it. Then we are going to drag and drop all the animations. Here we have our punch 2. So you can also select the animation or the motion here inside of the animator tab. And then you will be able to hold Command and press D and duplicate it. So we have punch 2, Command+D to duplicate it. This is going to be our punch 3. Let me just move them here so that I can have some kind of a order. So this one is going to be our punch 3. I'm also going to duplicate this one and go here. This one is going to be our kick 1. So kick 1, duplicate kick 1, and it is going to be kick 2. So now we're going to drag and drop all the animation. So for kick 2, drag and drop player kick 2. For kick 1, drag and drop player kick 1. For punch 3, you see where this is going. So drag and drop punch 3. For player punch 2, drag player punch 2, and for player 1, drag and drop player punch 1. And of course, the last animation that we're going to have is right click here and empty. This is going to be our death animation. So here I'm going to say death, and I am going to drag and drop the player death right there. Of course, you can test all of this out. Let me just put the animator back here. You can test all of these animations by simply going here and selecting the player child game object inside of our scene. And this is the idle animation of the player. This is player's death animation. As you can see, he falls down. This is player kick, as you can see. This is kick 1, by the way. This is kick 2. You see? We have the punch 1. Now you can test all of these and see how they look like. And you will notice that we have here animation events for these animations. So we have for the death, you have it here. You can select it. They came with the model. Now I talked about animation events. What you can do is, for example, if you want to add an animation event for the walk, you can go here in animation. And here for events, as you can see, you can go on every frame where you want to go, and then you will be able to add an animation event. As you can see, this event is added here. The function name is player SFX, which means it will require us to implement a event inside of our function and attach that event to here. Now, the way that we are doing, if you're following my tutorial so far, I did that in the first-person shooter tutorial, did that in the 3D fight game. How we do it is we duplicate animations, and I select then which frame I want to have our animation event, and I click on this key here, which will add that animation event. But for now, I'm going to delete them. So select them here and delete them. Also go here for our kick 1, delete both of these. So delete them and go here and kick 2. Also delete all of these in every animation. I have them in the attack animations. And by the way, if you're wondering how, well, the creator of these assets, he did that in his asset pack, and I did not bother to remove that. But I showed you a moment ago how that is being added. So you go inside of the inspector panel for the animations, and then you go on the frame, and then you click on animation event. But it's much easier when we duplicate them like this. Okay. So now that we have our animation set up, let us go here in parameters and create all the parameters that we need. So I'm going to go here in trigger, and we're going to have a punch 1 parameter. We are, as you can assume, going to have punch 2 and 3. So go here, trigger, we're going to have a punch 2 parameter. And plus here and trigger, and we're going to have a punch 3 parameter. And click here for the plus, we're also going to have kick. So it's going to be kick 1, and click on the plus, it's going to be kick 2. We're also going to have movement, which is going to be Boolean. So go here, movement. And actually, I added a movement as a trigger. So it's going to be a Boolean and movement. And lastly, we're going to have a trigger. Click on the plus sign, and this is going to be our death animation. Now, by the way, if you did not see where I was clicking, inside of the animation tab, and let me just go here, highlight, so highlight tool, here it is. And okay, open my highlight tool. As you can see, when you go into the animation tab, here you have 2 tabs. You have layers and you have parameters. You're going to click on the parameters layer, and then you have this plus button right here. So when you click on that plus button, you will be able to select parameters for these animations. And we have floats, integers, booleans, and triggers. So punches and kicks are triggers, and that is a trigger. Movement only is a Boolean parameter. So Boolean is only the movement parameter. So for what we're going to use these parameters, well, we're going to use them in our code in order to trigger these animations, and we want to trigger them when something happens. And by the way, I'm going to take this state like this and put these animations here like this. Voila. So this is what I'm gonna do. Yeah, this is okay. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna take them and right click here, for example, from idle to walk, because we're gonna be able to go from walk to idle and from idle to walk. When we walk in our code, when we start moving the player, we're gonna simulate the walk animation. So here, select the walk, click on this transition, and then you can go here for the list and you can add conditions. So I can click here on the plus sign and it added a condition, and now I can select what that condition is going to be. So I'm going to select here the movement. So the movement true, as you can see, we have true and false because it's a Boolean. I'm going to set the movement to true, and when that happens in our code, we are going to go from idle to the walk animation. So we're going to go from idle to walk animation. And I'm going to right click from walk back to idle and click on this here, and we will be able to, so click on the plus sign and here select the walk or movement, And when movement is equal to false, we will go from walk to the idle animation. Now, of course, we have these animation exit times and transition durations. I'm not sure if you saw my previous tutorials, if you saw that, but anyways, it's not important. We will see that in our code when we start typing out things. I just had a weird issue where the player's left leg was partially not visible. In order to fix that, you're simply going to go in projects, and here inside of the models and player, and here models for the player, select the player rig, the one that we have imported, and go here into the rig tab in the inspector. So you have for these model, rig, animation, and materials, you're going to click on rig, go from humanoid to generic from the drop down list and hit apply. And then you can go back from generic to humanoid, hit apply, and that will fix the problem. So while I'm at it, I'm also going to go in prefabs and create this player prefabs folder, or player prefab. And I am going to drag and drop this one. So simply drag and drop it here, voila, and we are good to go. So now we can go back into the animation here and finish these transitions. So then we can go inside of our code and we can fix everything. Now, let me just move this any state again here. What I'm gonna do here is we're gonna go from any state to all of these animations here. So we'll be able to go from any state to punch 1. Also, we're gonna go to punch 2, and punch 3, and kick 1, and kick 2, and of course in the death animation as well. So you're gonna right click and click on make transition. Now, of course, I've covered this in my previous tutorials in case you did not watch that. So right click on any state, click on make transition, then point to the animation or state where you want to go, and then simply go to that or click on it. Now we're gonna go from any state to punch 1, and I'm gonna click on this transition, and the condition for that is gonna be punch 1. Now this punch 1 is a trigger. We will use that in the code, so we will see that. That's why I'm telling you that we're gonna finish this now, and then we're gonna go in code and see how this works. Same thing for punch 2, but here I'm gonna click on this plus button, and by the way, you click on the transition, which is the white line from one state to another. Now, any state means any current state where we are. We can be in the idle, in the walk, in whatever state. If we press a certain button, we will see that later in the code, we will trigger one of these actions based on the parameter here. Now the parameter is, you click on the plus button, and let me go here, clear the pencil, you select this white line here, then you go into the inspector, you scroll down, and this plus button here, you see that I have just circled. When you click on that, you will be able to add here conditions. Now for punch 2, it will be punch 2. So we will go into punch 2 when we trigger punch 2 from within our code. So I'm gonna select here punch 3, and you can imagine here I'm gonna select punch 3. For kick 1, we are going to select kick 1, and for kick 2, well, you can guess. We're gonna select kick 2. For the death, well, it's a no-brainer. We are gonna select the death trigger. Now, of course, we need to go from these animations to the idle, from punches and kicks. So I'm gonna right-click on the punch and go here to the idle, from punch 2 to the idle, and do the same thing for all these. So right-click, click on make transition, hover over on idle, and press the left mouse button. Again, right click on the animation, select make transition, go here, and voila. So for here, we're gonna have exit time for every single one of these, and we will see that in the code. I need to explain this transition duration and this exit time. And the best way how I am able to explain it is to go and code it. So let's go here in our assets, and I'm gonna right click, create a new folder, which is gonna be our scripts folder, and inside of it I am going to create a player scripts, and inside of this one I'm gonna right click and go and create a C# script. This one is going to be player movement. So player movement. And the player movement is going to be attached on the player game object, the top one. So not the player child, but the player game object. And here I'm going to click on overrides and hit apply all. This is a new prefab workflow that I need to create a tutorial for, because in my previous tutorials I'm using the old prefab system. So this overrides will basically, it will apply these changes to the prefab that is saved here in the prefabs folder, because if I go here, select the player and click on this open prefab, if I attach any component now, if I attach, I don't know, let's say a box collider, and I attach a box collider, it will automatically be applied to this player, which is inside of the scene. As you can see here, we have the box collider. Now let me go back here and remove that. So I'm gonna click on the gear icon and remove the box collider. And notice here, this player does not have that box collider, which is in the hierarchy. You see, this one is in the hierarchy. If I select this one that is in the hierarchy and I go here and click on add component, and let's say I attach a circle collider or a sphere collider. I'm gonna click here and I'm attaching, or I have attached the sphere collider. If I select this one in the prefabs folder and click on open prefab, he does not have that sphere collider. In order for him to have it, when we make a change here on this one in the hierarchy, click on this overrides and hit this apply all. So when I click on that, and now I select this one here, click on open prefab, pay attention here, inside of the, or at the bottom in the inspector panel, he has a sphere collider. And I'm of course gonna remove that, but I'm just showing you because this one in the hierarchy is a copy of the original. The original one is in this folder, player prefab. So any change we make to the copy, we need to click on this override all so that that change will be applied to the original. So you understood now? Yes, you did, of course. So I'm gonna click here, player movement, and go inside of the script in Visual Studio. And let me just do my thing. You know, if you're watching my tutorials on a regular basis, you know that I'm weird and I do weird things like this. So what do we need? First of all, we need to animate our game object, but we did not create that, so don't worry. I'm simply gonna say here private player animation, which I'm gonna call player animation. We will cover this, don't worry. We're also gonna have here a private rigid body, which I'm gonna call my body. We are going to have a public float, which is gonna be walk speed, which by default I'm gonna say it's equal to 3. We're also gonna have a public float, so float z speed, which by default I'm going to set to 1.5f. We are also going to have a private float. This one is going to be the rotation underscore y, which is gonna be equal to -90. Now why -90? Because if I go back here inside of Unity, and if we go into the game tab, this is how our player is gonna preview. Now this is not how we want him to look like. Instead, we're gonna take the y-axis, so go and click on the y-axis in the inspector in the transform for the rotation. So rotation y, we're gonna set it to -90 so that he is facing this side. As you see, he is facing currently, as you can see, the right side, because the enemies are gonna come from the left side. This is gonna be somewhat as a 2.5D game, but still it's a 3D game. I know I don't know what I'm talking about, and I have difficulties talking. Anyways, moving forward, I have so much fun creating these tutorials. Moving forward, we're gonna have a private float rotation underscore speed, which is gonna be equal to 15f. Now, rotation speed is going to be the speed by which we are going to rotate our game object. So don't worry. Moving forward in the awake function, so awake is gonna be equal to, or inside we're gonna say my body is equal to get component rigid body component. Now we are also going to get a reference to this one, to player animation, but since we did not create it, I can do something like this. So I can go here and I can say player animation is equal to get component in children, so not in parent, in children, and here we're gonna say player animation like this. But of course this is not created. This is a script that we will create later, don't worry about that. So what we are gonna do next? Well, we are going to move our character. So we are gonna create here void detect movement, and not 90, but open close parentheses. Now detect movement, and inside of this one, we're simply gonna say my body velocity is gonna be equal to new vector 3, because the velocity is on the x, y, and z axis, and vector 3 has x, y, and z variable. So for the x, we are gonna say input dot get axis raw, and we're gonna say here horizontal like this, and we are going to multiply that here with the negative So negative from the walk speed, like this. This is for the x-axis. Now for the y-axis, and here I'm going to close parentheses, for the y-axis I'm going to say my body velocity y, and for the z-axis I'm going to say input.getAxis raw, and here I'm going to say vertical like this, and close parenthesis, and we're going to multiply that again with the negative of the z speed like this. Now, did I type it here, walk speed? Yes, I did. It's walk speed, so capitalize S. So negative of the walk speed. Now, one thing that we're gonna fix here is this horizontal and vertical, because I don't like hard coding things. What I think is better is to create a separate class, which I did right here. So we have a helper scripts folder. So create a helper scripts folder. Inside of that, create a tag manager class. Now, inside of this class, as you can see, I have these tags. What I'm gonna do now is show you this. You're gonna pause the video and you're gonna type this out. So this is for the animation tags when we start animating. So you are gonna do the following: pause the video, copy all of this. I'm gonna assume that you did that, and I'm gonna scroll down, and again you're gonna pause the video and copy again for axes and tags. So do the same thing, pause the video and copy all of this right here. So the next thing that we need to do is go back here in our player movement, and instead of horizontal here, we're simply gonna say axis.horizontal, and instead of vertical here, we're gonna say axis.vertical. Why is this important? Well, let's say we have these, or this line of code, so this one that we had previously. So here I'm gonna say horizontal, like this, so horizontal, and here I'm gonna say vertical, so vertical like this. And let's say you don't have this only on this place, you have it, I don't know, in maybe 3 or 4 other places in your code, and then you make a mistake. Then you need to go back, you need to fix, because if you type here horizontal without L at the end, or you type capital L, it will not work. So the capitalization needs to be exactly like this. So why type it out on every single spot in your code when you can simply type it here on one single place? So horizontal axis, horizontal and vertical. So any problem that you have, you simply need to go here and change that. And then in any place in your code where you're using this, it will be changed for that as well. Now, what is this getAxis raw? Well, I can demonstrate that. Let me quickly go here, and I'm gonna create fixed update, and in fixed update, we're gonna call detect movement. Now, in the update, I'm simply gonna say print, and I'm going to say the value, come on, u is, and I'm gonna say here plus input getAxis raw axis dot horizontal. It's the same for the vertical, except clicking on different keys on your keyboard. But if I go here in our console, I'm gonna quickly clear it. So I'm gonna clear the console, hit the play button. So now when I move things, you see now what's happening. So let me go from the beginning. From the beginning we have 0, 0, 0 because we're not pressing any buttons. This horizontal get axis raw for horizontal, it will get the input when we press the A key or the D key or the left arrow key or the right arrow key. So it's horizontal because the coordinate system, it works like this. This is the coordinate system, like this. So this is X and this is Y. So Y is up and down. You see, X is left and right. So when you click the A key or D, that means A is going, you see this is A, and how I draw it, this is A and this is D key, or left arrow and right arrow key, because that is horizontal. And I was pressing those keys, so I was pressing the A and the D. You see here I'm pressing A. A is negative, so going to the left side is the negative side in Unity, that's why we have -1, and I'm pressing the D key here and I have 1. So positive side to the right is 1, so it's gonna give us a value from actually 0, -1, or 1. If you're not pressing anything, it will give us 0 value. If we are pressing the A key, it will give us the -1 value, and if we are pressing the D key, it will give us the +1 value. Now, we're gonna call this in the fixed update. In general, you're gonna use fixed update to move your game object using the velocity or using gravity, using physics to be more precise, because my body is a rigid body. Rigid body is affected by physics. So velocity here, we're affecting the physics of the rigid body, and the best place to put that code is the fixed update. In the update, we can put code for moving with transform property, so moving the position, so on and so forth. But here in the fixed update, put any code that has to do with physics calculation. And if I go here in Unity, and I'm gonna hit the play button now, so pay attention, I'm gonna move the game object. You see, he's moving, and he's moving backwards. I'm pressing the D key, he's moving forward. Down, he's moving down. Up, he's moving up. And by the way, he moves a little bit fast, so what I'm gonna do is select the player, and for the walk speed, I'm gonna set 2. And I'm gonna click here, overrides, and apply all, and I'm gonna hit the play button. And yeah, I think this is a little bit better. Not a little bit, but a lot bit. This is better anyways. So voila, this is our movement. So we have the movement. The next thing that we need is the rotation. And that's fairly simple. So we're gonna go here, right below our detect movement, we're going to create void rotate player. And inside of here, we are simply gonna detect if our, and this is what I was talking about. So here we're gonna do the same thing. Let me just tag these. So movement, and here I'm gonna say rotation. And we're gonna test here if our input dot get axis raw is axis dot horizontal axis. So if it's greater than 0, again, why greater than 0? Well, I just explained that a moment ago. If we're moving to the right side, that's the positive side. So if that value, if this right here that we get from axis raw for horizontal, if it's greater than 0, that means it is equal to 1, which is greater than 0, which means we're going to the right side. As you can see here, this is the coordinate system, this is the right side, so the positive one. That's why we have the value 1. So if you're going to the positive side, we're simply going to say transform dot rotation. So rotation is going to be equal to quaternion Euler. This is what we use for the rotation, and simply we pass the 3 axes, 0 for the x. For the y, we're going to say negative of mat f absolute value of the rotation y. And for the z, we're going to use 0. And here we're going to say else if input get axis raw, and here we're going to say vertical, or actually axis dot vertical axis. And if that value is less than 0, that means we are going to the left side. And this is what I was talking about a moment ago when we are using this right here. You see, here we have another lines of code that are using the same functionality. So we're using here get axis run. By the way, we could also put this here in the detect movement, but I like to separate the code. So I like to separate, this one is handling the movement, this one is handling the rotation. That's why I'm doing it like this. So moving back here, what are we doing? We're using the axis, horizontal axis on both places. So if, for example, something is not working here or here, we only need to go and change that here, because this is the variable that we're using, which means the problem is here. Maybe I omit L at the end, or A, or whatever, or I capitalized A, or whatever the reason is, this is not working. We're gonna fix it right here, and it will be applied for both of these cases. So we don't need to fix it here and then go here. And this is just an easy example. If you have a game that has 2 gigabytes of size, or 3 or 4, and you have thousands of lines of code, you can think, or you can imagine how messy this can get if you're not using everything in one place. Anyways, what we are gonna do here is I'm gonna simply take this and duplicate it and paste it here. And here, instead of negative, I'm gonna use the positive. Now, what is matf_abs? Matf, by the way, is a collection of common math functions you can see here. So we have the absolute value. What is the absolute value? If you went in school, in any school, in kindergarten, you know that the absolute value of a number is always positive. That is that. So if we say something like this, if we say matf dot absolute of 100, the value will be 100. If we say absolute of negative 100, the value will be 100. Any number that we put in there will return a positive value. So absolute will put or return a positive value. Now here for the first one, we are adding negative in front of it, so it will return a positive number, but we're gonna set here negative, which will make it negative. The reason for that is if we go here, the nature of our game, you see, in order to face this player to the right side, I need to set his axis Y to -90, because if I set it to 90, he's facing the left side. You see here, if I set it at 0, he's facing us towards the camera. So what I need to do is put the -90, and then he is facing the right side. That's the reason why I'm doing it here, because if I go here, see the rotation Y is -90. We can also omit that. We can do it like this. So I can put it like this, because the value of rotation is -90. And this will work as well. But here we need to put the absolute value to return a positive number, because if I go back here, you see, facing the right side is -90. If we want to face the left side, I simply need to put the positive here, and voila, you see now he's facing the positive. So even though that we can leave here rotation Y, here we need to add abs so that we return an absolute value, which is positive always. And transform rotation is the rotation property, and we added that by using quaternion Euler, because quaternions represent rotations in Unity. We represent rotation by using a quaternion, and we simply say here Euler, you see here, returns rotation that rotates z degrees around the z-axis, x degrees around the x, y degrees around the y. And this is x, this is y, and this is z. Voila, that is that. And we talked about what is input get axis raw. So if I go back here inside of the update, we're simply going to call our rotate player, which is going to rotate the player. And by the way, if I did not explain here the velocity, and if you watched one of my tutorials, I use this a lot. The velocity of the rigid body is the speed over time. I always compare that with your car. So if you put your leg on the gas pedal, the speed increases over time. That increase in speed over time is called velocity, meaning when you put your leg on the gas pedal, you don't go from 0 to 100 in that same moment. You go from 0 to 100 in 5 seconds, in 10 seconds, in 20 seconds, depending on your car. It's not important. But that speed increase over time, it's called velocity. And here we're editing the velocity directly, which means it will give a strong boost to the player. That's why we added this very low number. We changed it to 2. That's why we add a very low number, because if you add 20, the player will move like, I don't know, Superman or whatever. So that is what we are doing. And velocity is represented by a rigid, or actually, excuse me, by a vector tree. For x velocity, y velocity, and z velocity. So x velocity will move him left and right, y up and down, and z forward and backwards. So that is that. And now we are calling in the update rotate player, and this is the case where we will call this in the update, not in the fixed update, but in the update function. So let me just move this here. I press some keys on accident. Anyways, this is our rotate. We can go back here and test it out. So I'm gonna hit the play button. And notice now I'm going forward, nothing will change. So what is happening here? Let me just go here. And I deleted the fixed update. Yeah, thank you. So void fixed update, detect movement. How did I manage to delete that? I don't know. Anyways, let me go back. And now when I hit the play button, I'm gonna move forward. So I'm pressing D, moving forward, nothing is happening because we are rotating the game object by rotation Y, which is -90, which is facing forward, which is okay. But pay attention now, if I move back, voila. You see now? What is wrong? Now, I'm gonna leave this in the video because we need to inspect this. So get axis raw. And here you see I'm using vertical axis. Voila, of course. Why shouldn't I use vertical axis? So I need to use horizontal axis. Let me go back and finally test this out. So when I hit the play button, moving forward, everything normal. Moving backwards, he's rotating. As you can see here, he rotates to +90. Here, -90. Pay attention, select the player and pay attention to the y-axis. Currently it's at -90. I'm moving forward, everything is okay. Moving backwards, you see the value is 90, +90. Forward is -90. And backwards it is positive, or actually, excuse me, backwards is positive, forward it is -90. So voila, it's a simple way to rotate our player, and he rotates very quickly, facing forward and facing backwards by simply using these lines of code and you saw how that works. And I left on purpose the error that I had. You saw that rotating on the backwards was not working, so immediately I knew that something here was not right. So I checked the input, I was using the vertical axis, which was the issue, and we fixed that. Let us now animate the player, and that starts with creating the player animation script. So let's go back into the player scripts, and right here I'm going to create a C# script, and we're gonna call it player animation. It can also be character animation because we're also going to use it for the enemy, so we can say character animation. It's going to be attached on both, so we're not going to attach it on the parent game object. Instead, we're going to attach it on the player child because that is the one who has the animator. So we're going to drag and drop the character animation on player child. And of course, we need to go here on player and click on override and apply all so that we have this on the child, so that we actually apply that to the prefab. Now, of course, you know my weird things that I do here. So I'm gonna tag the class, and here just give a little bit space, and voila, you see the red lines above. So you see the red lines here. Voila. So what I need to do is restart Visual Studio for some reason. So I need to reopen it again. And this happens from time to time, unfortunately. So let me just wait for it to open, and voila, we are back. So what do we need inside of this class? Of course, we need a couple of variables as always. So we need a private animator, which I'm going to call animate. Basically, that's the only one. So not a couple, but only one. And inside of the awake function, we're simply going to say anim is equal to get the component, which is the animator component. The animator component is attached on the game object, and the animator component holds all the animations that we have, and we're going to use it to animate the player. So the first animation is going to be a public void walk, which is going to take a boolean, which I'm going to say here move, and simply here we're going to say anim.setBool, and we're going to call here animation tags dot movement, comma, and we're going to pass here move. So what is going on? If you remember, if I go back here in Unity and select the player child, which is the one holding the animations, in the animator panel here, if you remember, we're going to go from idle to walk when the move parameter, you see the movement actually parameter, is set to true. Now, these are the parameters, as you can see at the bottom left corner. So these are the parameters, and we use them for these animation transitions here. So they are the condition for that, and that condition is fulfilled here, as you can see. So when we pass here move, now this is a boolean, it's either true or false. So here it will either be true or false, but pay attention. If I select this transition from idle to walk, when movement is true, we will go from idle to walk. When movement is equal to false, we will go back from walk to idle. So this is what we are doing here, and for that we simply need to call anim set bool. Now pay attention here, it's set bool. We also have here anim set float, set integer. We also have set trigger. Now these are all the parameter types that we have. If you remember, if I click on this plus sign, for the parameters we have a float, integer, boolean, and a trigger. Movement is a boolean. We created it as a boolean, and our others are triggers. So when you want to call or add a specific parameter, you call it by its type. So anim set bool, and you add the name. You see here, animation tag is movement. If I go back here, this is that movement, you see? This is the name, movement, same as the parameter name right here. Pay attention. Now these names need to match up. If I have here movement with lowercase m and capital case M here, it will not work. Or here, if I say movement like this, this is not gonna work. So if the M is capitalized, uppercase that is, then we also need to make it right here. So we need to set it here to be also capitalized, or otherwise it will not work. So those names need to match up. And you simply, as I said, you type set bool, and let me just move this back, set bool, call the name of that bool here, which is movement, and you set the value, either true or false. So moving forward, what we have our punch one, so public void punch underscore one. We're gonna have 2 and 3, of course. So simply here, we're gonna say anim, and here it's set trigger. So set trigger, and call the animation tags dot punch one trigger. simply copy and paste this. So 1, 2, because we're gonna have punch 2 and we're gonna have punch 3, and also here for the trigger it's gonna be punch 2 trigger, and here it's gonna be punch 3 trigger. And lastly we have the kicks. So we're gonna say here public void, so void kick 1, and we're gonna have kick 2, so it's the same thing. So anim dot set trigger, calling here animation tags dot kick 1 trigger, copy and paste, and here we have kick 2 and also here kick 2. Now when you change the names of the functions, as you see here, because we copy pasted, we copy this function, paste it 2 times. When you change here to punch 2 and punch 3, make sure that you do here the same, because otherwise punch 1 will be left. Here for the kicks, do the same thing. So do the same thing. Now we will have something else to do in this character animation, but we will do that when we add our enemy. But for now, this is enough for us to start animating our player, and we are gonna talk about those transitions. So here in our player movement, right below the rotation, we're gonna create here void animate player walk, like this. And here I'm simply gonna say animate, so animate player walk. And here on top now, I can uncomment this. Now we named it character animation, so character animation, and here we have our player animation. I can simply call it player anim, it will be enough. And here we're gonna say player anim instead of player animation is equal to get component in children, and it's not player animation but it is character animation. Now you see this get component in children. If I go back here in Unity, the player, the topmost parent is this one. The player child is the one who has that component. So if we want to get it, we cannot say get component. Get component will get the component that is attached on that specific game object. But if you want to get a component that's on a child, you will use get component in children. But be warned, this only works if you have one script attached. Now it works if you have two, but the issue is if I go here on this, for example, game object, and if I attach the character animation, this will still work. So get component in children, it will still work, but there is no guarantee which one of these we will get. So we will either get this one or we will get this one. So there is no guarantee. Let me just click here, remove component, because if I hover over, it says, well, it does not say, but anyways, let me see here if it says like this, get component in children. No. But anyways, the explanation for this is that it goes in the child game objects and it gets that component. So there is no way to tell if it's gonna get from one game object or from one child or another. That's why when you have one, this works 100%. So if I go back here now, what we're gonna test is if we are pressing horizontal axis and vertical as well. So here we're gonna say if our input dot get axis raw, and here we're gonna say axis, so axis dot horizontal axis, or so if that is not equal to 0, excuse me, so if that is not equal to 0, or if our input dot get axis raw axis dot vertical axis, if that is not equal to 0, meaning we are pressing them. So if we are pressing either vertical or horizontal, we are going to call our player anim, and we're going to call here walk, passing here true, like this. And let me just move this right here. Else we're going to simply call our player anim to set here player walk to be equal to false. Voila, simple as that. Now, again, what we're doing here is we are testing if we are pressing the horizontal or vertical axis. And pay attention here, we're saying if it's not equal to. If you want to test if something is equal to another game object, you use the double equal sign. So here we're going to test if A is equal to B. Now, not async, but if A is equal to B, use the double equals sign. If you want to test if something is not equal to, so you're going to use exclamation mark, and then you're going to use the equal sign. So if A is not equal to B, it's the same thing that we're doing here. So if the axis raw that we get from the input on the horizontal axis, if it's not equal to 0, because if you remember a moment ago, I explained that if we are not pressing, any buttons for the horizontal or vertical, the get axis raw will return 0. If we start pressing them, then it will return positive or negative value depending on which button we are pressing. So if it's not equal to 0, meaning if we're pressing, be that positive or negative side, it will call the walk animation. Same for the vertical axis. So same goes for the vertical axis. And this is also going to be called in the update. So here, animate player walk. Voila. So I can go back here in Unity, and now we're gonna see the transitions and what I was talking about when it comes to these transitions. So let me just go here and hit the play button. Now pay attention to these animations here. See, currently the blue line goes over the idle animation, if you see that. So the idle is being played. We have the walk. If I start walking, you see he is not animating, but now he's animating. You see, now our character is animating. Now, what is wrong here, or what is happening? You see, now I've stopped walking, so I'm moving, and now I've stopped walking and he's animating. What is wrong here is the following. These transitions, if I click on them, the transitions have this exit time and they have the transition duration. Now, exit time will allow the animation to be played. You see, exit time in normalized time from current state, basically, it will allow animation to end depending on which value you put here, but we're going to turn it off. So we're going to say 0, and for the transition duration, we're simply going to say here 1. For the walk, so when we want to go back from idle to walk, here we are also going to uncheck the exit time and set the transition duration to 0.1. So if I go back now, pay attention what's going to happen. Now, as soon as I start pressing, we start walking, you see? And when I release the button, so when I release, we stop walking. So pay attention. Right now I'm going to press, and voila, he started to walk. And you see? And now I'm still pressing and holding, and I'm moving him left and right and up and down. You see, as soon as I release, and pay attention, I'm moving up and he's still walking. And I'm moving down and he's still walking. Forward, backward, he is still walking, as you can see. And when I release the button, right away when I release it, so right away when I release the button, he stops walking. Now this is that, or these are those transitions. And let me just go here and player child animation event. It does not have, let me just take a look at here for which animation I forgot. I think for the walk. Yeah, walk also needs to be removed, or these events, we need to remove them. Simply click on them and hit delete to delete those animation events. Anyways, you saw what it meant, or what I was talking about when I said about these transition and the duration and whatnot. Now you can play with this. So you can play with this here. I don't know, you can make the transition, let's say 0.5, and you can see the effect. So if I go back here and I start moving, if I release the button, you see? He does not go right, he does not automatically go. You see, he slowly goes from the walk to the idle. I'm not sure if you can see that, but pay attention. I'm going to zoom on the player a little bit. So pay attention now when I release the button. So I'm going to release it right now. You see how slowly he went back from walk to idle. But if I take the transition, so if I take that transition and I set the duration to 0.1, and if I try it now, pay attention when I release it. Right away, you see, right away he goes back to his idle animation. And we can do it with the exit time. So I can go here, and let's say if I set the exit time to 1. So I'm gonna play the animation here. So play, and now when I release the button, I released it, but he was still walking, as you can see. He was still walking. Again, I'm gonna move, and pay attention, I'm gonna release the button. I released it. He was in one place and he was walking. Now you can experiment with this. I don't know, you can set, for example, 0.2. So let's test that out. So I can go here, and again, we have a similar effect. Let's say 0.1. So going back here, still we're allowing him to finish most of the animations. Let's say 0.05, something like this. So half of that. So let's go here. It is a little bit better. Maybe some other lower value number, or turn it off. So simply turn it off. Depending on what you want to achieve, maybe a smoother animation or whatever you're trying to do, you will simply experiment with the numbers. I always say experiment. That's the best way to learn. So that is the best way to learn. Okay, now the same thing is gonna happen with the transitions with the punches. Because as you can see, we are gonna go from our punches and kicks to the idle animation. And the same thing, if we don't correct these transitions and speed and the duration and the exit time, if we don't correct that, the same thing is going to happen. So what we're gonna do for any state, you see here, we're gonna select the transition for punch 1 and we're gonna turn off the exit time and turn off the transition duration. So select it, turn off transition duration, basically it's gonna be at 0, so not 9, turn it off. For punch 3, also turn it off, so fixed duration at 0. And let me go here and also turn it off. So turn that off and go back here, also turn that off. And we're gonna do the same thing for the death. So go here for the death, basically turn it off because we wanna die instantly. Now when it comes for these transitions from punch to the idle, pay attention here, we have the exit time because we have no parameters. So we have no conditions. I'm gonna set the exit time to 1, but I'm also gonna set the transition durations to 0.05. And we're gonna do the same thing for all punches. So exit time is gonna be 1, and here I'm gonna say 0.05, and also for punch 3, exit time 1, 0.05 for the transition duration. For the kicks, I'm gonna say exit time 1 and transition duration is 0. And for kick 2, same thing, exit time, and transition duration is gonna be equal to 0. So I was talking about when I set 1, exit time is gonna be 1 for all 5 of these animations. Now, why do we need to have exit time? Because just a moment ago, I demonstrated that when you have exit time, we will allow the animation to finish. And that is precisely what we want to do because we don't have any conditions from punch 1 to go back to idle. As you can see here, we have conditions to go from idle to walk, but we also have a condition to go back from walk to idle. That is when movement is equal to false, and we're setting that right here. This is what we're doing. So if we are pressing anything, then we will set true, and if we're not pressing anything, we will set it to be equal to false. But if I go back here, for our punch, we're going from any state. We have a condition, which is punch 1. For punch 2, we have punch 2, so on and so forth. We don't have fixed transition duration or exit time. But when we want to go from punch 1 to idle, we set the exit time to 1. Transition duration, very small value because that is not important. But why? Because we don't have any condition. If we don't have a condition, we need to have an exit time. That means when the animation finishes, then it will transition to the animation where we are pointing. So that means, in this case, when punch 1 finishes, it will transition to the idle animation. Same for punch 2, 3, 4, or actually 2, 3, and kick 1 and 2. So same thing. That is what is gonna happen. That's why we need to have the exit time to allow the animation to finish. So finish playing that punch animation, and when it finishes, it will automatically use this transition to transition to the animation where we are pointing. In this case, it's idle, but maybe in your case, it can be, I don't know, some other animation that you have set up. But if you don't have conditions here, then you will need to have exit time for your animation in order for the transition to work. Let us now demonstrate that by creating our player attack script that we're going to use to attack. So here in the player scripts, I'm going to right click and create a C# script. This one is going to be called player attack. And as you can assume, we are going to attach it on the top player game object. So not the child, but the player holding the child. So drag and drop it on him, go on overrides and click on apply all. Double click it and open it here in Visual Studio. And you know my thing, I'm weird. Anyways, let me just do my thing and voila, we are done. So what do we need? And I mistyped here, so it's like this. So what do we need in order to make this work? Well, it's pretty easy actually, because what we can do is, and that is the usual approach people will take, that is, here I'm gonna say void combo attacks, and we're going to call this one in the update function. So here we're gonna say combo attacks. Now, in order for us to attack, we simply need to get the input from the player. So we can simply do it like that. If input get key down, and we're gonna say key code. So let me just put it back here. It's key code.z. And when we press the key code Z down, now pay attention, and I did this in my previous tutorials if you watch them. Now, there is a difference between get key down, get key up, and only get key. Now get key will detect when you press and hold the button. So as long as you're holding the button, it will detect that and it will be printed in the console if you use something like print to test that out. And you can try that on your own. Get key down, however, will only detect in the one frame where you press the key down. So only one frame, you press the key down, and you can hold the button for months if you want to, but still it will only detect it once when you press it down. Now get key up is the opposite. So when you press down and hold, it will not do anything. When you release the key, so when you release it, that's when the magic happens with the get key up. So we're going to use get key down so that we prevent, if we use get key, it will be called multiple times. We don't want that. We only need to call it once. So get key down is enough. And here we can create our private character animation, which I'm going to call player anim. And in the awake function, we're going to get the reference to it because we need to animate the attack. And here I'm going to say player anim is equal to get component in children. We did this already, which is our character animation component, which is attached on the child game object. So I can go here, and with the Z, we're going to attack with the punch. With X, we're going to attack with the kick. So what I can do is I can say player anim dot punch 1. Voila, that is that. And here, I'm simply going to copy this and go here, and I'm going to paste it. So X instead of Z, and here, instead of punch, we're going to say kick 1. And if I go back, and in the console, so let me just go here, clear everything, and hit the play button. So notice what's gonna happen. If I press, you see, if I press the Y, we attack, and with X, we attack with the leg. Now pay attention. If I select the child, you will see here how the animations are playing. Now when we preview the animations that are playing, you see here the idle animation has this blue bar filling. That means that the animation is playing with the, or current animation that is playing is idle. But pay attention now when I press the Y, or actually the Z key. You see punch animation played, and automatically we went, you see punch played, and automatically we went to the transition to the idle, or from the transition to the idle animation. This is because, again, here we have the exit time. We don't have parameters, which means, again, and I explained that a moment ago, and we saw that in action. It works the same with the kick. But we're not going to test it right now. Anyways, what is my point here? When you have exit time, and even if I turn off exit time, pay attention here, transition needs at least one condition or an exit time to be valid. Otherwise, it will be ignored. This is what I was talking about. Pay attention here at the bottom left, or actually, excuse me, bottom right corner. So this right here that I have just squircled, because I did not circle it. I squared it, so squircled. Anyways, you see, it says transition needs to have at least one condition or an exit time. So if we uncheck the exit time and we don't have a condition, you see that warning. The point here is you need an exit time for the animation to exit when it plays. Otherwise, it will not work. Okay? Okay. Moving forward. So we have our punch and we have our kick, but we cannot create any combos with it. I can go here and I can press Z key as long as I want. You see, I'm only attacking like this. You see, nothing is happening. I'm not chaining any combos. So how can we chain combos? Well, it's easier than you think. The first thing that we're going to create here is a public enum, and I'm going to call this one combo state. And here we are going to type out which combos we have. So we have not no, it's none. So we have no combo state. We have punch _1. We also have punch _2, and we have punch _3. So these are the combos. We have kick _1, and we have kick _2. So these are the combos that we can have. Now here we are going to create our private character animation, which we already did. We also need a private boolean, which is going to be activate timer to reset. We also need here a private float, and this one is going to be default _combo _timer, which is going to be equal to 0.4. We also need a private float current combo timer, which by default we're going to leave it like this, which means it will be set to 0. And here we're also going to declare our private combo state, which I'm going to call current combo state. In the start function, we are going to go here. So in the start, we're going to say void in our current combo timer. So here we're going to say start like this. And the current combo timer is going to be equal to default combo timer. And by default, our combo state, so current combo state is going to be equal to combo state none. This is by default because, well, when we just start our game, we are not going to have any combo state. Now, what are we going to do here when we press the Z key, and how we are going to determine which combo to play out? Well, first of all, when we press our combo state, so when we press the Z key, we're going to say here current combo state plus plus. Now, I know that maybe you are confused. So what are we doing here? Because we're using current combo state, this is a numeration. Well, we can do also something like this. We can say here current combo state is equal to 1, but not #1. It's equal to 1, but we do need to cast it here, so we need to say combo state. And this is referring it as an index because these here can be index, of course, same as an array. So 0 will be here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like that. So 0 again is the first element, which is none. So if I say here 1 and I say this combo state like this, that means we set the combo state to equal to punch 1. That's why here, let me just remove this. That's why here when we say plus plus, we are moving the combo state from none to punch 1. So this is what we are doing. And of course, next time we press it, it will be plus plus again. So it will move to punch 2 and punch 3 and so on and so forth. Now, when this happens, we are also going to call here activate timer to reset, which is going to be equal to true. And the current combo timer is going to be equal to default combo timer. Why is this important? What we are actually going to do with this? Well, first of all, here below, then we're going to test if our current combo state is equal to combo state punch 1, then what we're gonna do, we're going to call our player anim to play punch 1. Simple as that. And you can assume what we're gonna do with this 2 times more. So 1 and 2. And here we're gonna test if the current combo state is equal to punch 2, then we are gonna call punch 2. And if the current combo state is equal to punch 3, then we are going to call punch 3 here. But why is this plus plus here, actually this activate timer to reset and this current combo timer, why is this important? Because below here we are going to, and first of all, let me just type here, this is combo attacks, and here below I'm going to create a function void reset combo state. Because we are going to allow the player for a limited time to perform a combo state, is as in any game. So you need to press the button rapidly to perform a combo state. So here what we're going to do is we're going to test if activate timer to reset, which we are doing here. So this is where we are setting it to be equal to true when we press the button. So if that is true, we're going to say current combo, so current combo timer minus equals time dot delta time. And if our current, so if the current combo timer is less than or equal to 0, that means we run out of time to perform the combo. And here reset combo state, just to mark the function. Then we're going to say current combo state is going to be equal to combo state none. And then we're simply going to say activate timer to reset is equal to false, and current combo timer, so current combo timer is going to be equal to default combo timer. But we can also omit this right here because here we are setting the current combo timer to be equal to default combo timer, but I'm going to leave it. Anyways, now we will be able to perform our combo states, but of course we're far from done. And if I go here in our Unity and if I click the play button right now, but actually one thing that I forgot to do, because yeah, you know me, I'm stupid, we need to call this reset combo state right here. So we need to call it for it actually to work. So if we don't call it in the update function, this code right here will not happen. And let me go and test that out and demonstrate, and I will get back and break down the code a little bit more so that we can, well, understand what we are doing. We don't want to do things blindly, so pay attention now. So I'm gonna press 1, 2, 3. You see, 1, 2, 3, and voila. You see, and I can press it that many times, but now we had one problem. We finished the combos that quick that now I need to wait for the combos, because you see, I pressed that so many times. You see, press that so many times, as you can see here, which eventually, if I go back here, eventually it will lead the combo state to go to combo state kick. Now, why am I telling you that? First of all, let me explain. When we press the Z key once, so when we press it once, we are gonna say here plus plus for the current combo state, which means we're gonna go by 1. If it's at none, we're gonna say punch 1. So now it's gonna be equal to punch 1. And then we are gonna perform punch 1, because you can see here, if current combo state is equal to combo state punch 1, then we are going to, as you can see, play or animate the punch 1. But when this here happens, we're also calling activate timer to reset to true, which will trigger this right here, which will start counting down. We know that the default combo timer is 0.4 of a second, which means when we press the Z key once, we have 0.4 of a second to press it again before it resets back. You see here, before it resets the combo to none. And then we need to start the combo from start. Do you understand what is happening now? Because every time we press the Z key, we have 0.4 of a second, as you can see here, because we set the current combo timer to default combo timer. And if that is true, so if activate timer to reset is true, we're gonna subtract from current combo timer time.delta time, which means we're subtracting a very small amount, but we also have a small amount here, which is 0.4. That means we have 0.4 of a second to press the button again to change the combo, because then we're gonna say current combo state plus plus. And if the previous combo state was punch 1, now we're gonna go to combo state punch 2, which means here we will execute this code now, because now the current combo state will be punch 2, and then we will execute it. And we demonstrated that, and same goes for punch 3. You see now, if I go back here and hit the play button, so I'm gonna press it once and again quickly. You see, press it once and again quickly before 0.4 of a second runs out. So 1, 2, 3, and this happened quickly before 0.4 of a second passed out. But if I do this and I press it quickly, you see nothing is happening. You see, I'm doing that again. I'm pressing and nothing is happening. Now, the reason for that is, if I go back here, because of this current combo state plus plus, if we press this button that many times fast, every time we're gonna add to the combo state, which means if the combo state is to punch 1, then we will set it to punch 2. If it's to punch 2, then punch 3. But then if it's to punch 3, we will set it to kick 1. So we need to prevent that. So here, what we need to do is we need to test if the current combo state is equal to combo state punch 3. So if current combo state is punch 3, or if our current combo state is equal to combo state kick 1, or if the current combo state is equal to combo state kick 2, if something of this is true, then we are gonna say here return. Now, why are we doing it like this? Because I already told you, if we don't test it like this, then we will go to the next combo state. And I don't know if you noticed, but you need to actually try yourself to notice that when I press it too fast, it's not doing anything. So it's not doing anything because it already went into the third punch combo, then it will go to the kick combo, and when that happens, nothing here will happen. I'm hoping that you're understanding. Because again, and I'm trying to explain this in the best way I can. So when I press the Z, current combo state will be plus plus. It will go from this punch to this punch to this, but when you get to kick 3, to kick 1, actually, nothing will happen here. That's why we need to reset it here and return in a void function, because we learned that return is used in a function that returns a value, but a void function does not return a value. Well, return in a void function simply exits the function, which means when we hit the return statement, we will exit outside of the function, and this code right here will not be executed. So all of this code here and below the return, it will not execute. That means if something of here is true, if the current combo state is punch 3, then we are gonna let it finish because we chained all combos. If the current combo state is kick 1, then we will exit from here. If it's kick 2, we will exit from here because this is where we are going to perform the kick combos. This is where we are gonna do that. And inside of this here, we're practically gonna do the same thing. So let me just go here, but a little bit different. So the same thing, but a little bit different. Here we're gonna say if our current combo state is equal to combo state kick 2, or if the current combo state is equal to combo state punch 3, then we're gonna say here return. Same reason as we have above, because we're gonna have 2 kicks. And here I'm gonna say if kick, so kick, and here I'm gonna say if punch. We have 3 punch combos and 2 kick combos, and then we will be able to chain 1 punch and 2 kicks and 2 punch and 2 kicks. And here we are gonna test again. So if our current combo state is equal to combo state none, or if our current combo state is equal to combo state dot punch 1, or if our current combo state is equal to combo state punch 2, so punch 2, what we're gonna do here, and let me just move this, what we're gonna do in this case, we're gonna say current combo state is equal to combo state kick 1, and here I'm gonna say else if, so it's else if, like this, and we're gonna test if current combo state is equal to combo state kick 1, then we're gonna say current combo state plus plus, like this, and voila. Below here, then we're gonna say activate, so activate timer to reset is equal to true. Our current combo timer is equal to default underscore combo underscore timer, and below here we're gonna test if current combo state is equal to combo state kick 1, and here I'm gonna say player anim dot kick 1 to play the kick 1, and here below if current combo state is kick 2, then we are going to call here kick 2. Now what happened? What are we doing? Well, as I said, we're gonna chain kick 1 and kick 2, and then we're gonna chain kick 1, or actually punch 1, kick 2, kick 1 and kick 2, and punch 1 and punch 2, and kick 1 and kick 2. So if the current combo is punch 3 or kick 2, return, or meaning exit, because we have no combos to perform. And here, if the current combo state is none, or punch 1 or punch 2, then we can set current combo state to kick 1 to chain the combo. Simple as that. This right here means if we are in none, of course, if we press the X key and we are in the combo state none, then we will go into combo state kick 1. But if we are in punch 1 or punch 2, this is what I was talking about. So we can do punch, kick, kick. We can do punch, punch, kick, kick. This is what we are doing here. So if the current combo state is none, or punch 1 or punch 2, we can move to kick 1. And if the current combo state is kick 1, we are simply going to say plus plus, meaning move to kick 2. So move to kick 2. If the current combo state again is kick 1, we're going to move the current combo state to kick 2 and perform that. And of course here we're going to activate timer to reset. And here we are going to set the combo timer to the default combo timer. And if the current combo state is kick 1, play the kick 1 animation. If the current combo state is kick 2, play the kick 2 animation. Now let me demonstrate that, and it will be more clear when I do that here. from within our editor. So we can do punch, kick, kick. As you can see, we can do punch, punch, kick, kick. And this is what's happening. But if I do punch, pay attention, punch, 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 I cannot do kick. Punch, 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 but I press kick, it did not work. So punch, 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 change the combo, I press kick, it's not working. You cannot see it because it's not working, but you can try that on your own. And also if I do kick, I cannot do punch afterwards. Kick, kick, I cannot press punch. I mean, I pressed it and it worked, but after the kick was finished. But in chaining combos, you say chaining combo punch, punch. So punch, 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 punch. Punch, kick, kick. Punch, punch, kick, kick. This is what we are doing. So if we go here, that is what is happening. So if we are in the current combo state kick 2 or punch 3, we don't have any more combos to change. So return, exit out of the function. But if the current combo state is none, or punch 1 or punch 2, we can go to kick 1, which means we will do punch, kick, kick, or punch, punch, kick, kick. And if the current combo state is kick, then we can simply safely move to kick 2. And then here, we will perform the kick that we are currently in. So if it's kick 1, we will play the animation. If it's kick 2, we will play that animation. And I hope everything here is clear. We are doing the same thing for our player. We're not gonna allow the player to chain any more combos if he is in the punch 3 state. And we're not gonna allow him to chain combos if he is in kick 1 or kick 2. So we cannot do kick, punch, punch, or kick, kick, punch, punch. No, only punch, kick, kick, or punch, punch, kick, kick. And this right here we explained, so we are gonna reset the timer. So this, we will subtract delta time from it. When the timer hits 0 or below 0, we will reset it to none, which means we can chain the combo again. And here, activate timer to reset is false and reset the current combo timer. Now we can start creating our enemy, and for that we can go inside of our Unity, and let me go here into the models folder, and then we have the enemy, and voila, the enemy rig. So this one right here. Now let me just position the enemy same where the player is. So I'm gonna copy the transform, copy component, and I'm gonna paste component values, but I am going to move the enemy here. Voila. And of course, rotate the enemy like this. Now, as you can see, the enemy, same as the player when we just imported him, is white. Now, this is not how we want our enemy to be. So let me go here in the materials. This is enemy D. Now we can also create another one, but I can simply drag and drop this one on the character enemy. And going here into textures. So for the material here, we're going to select the same one as we did for the player. So custom and matcap additive. So first of all, the enemy D goes right here. Then we have the enemy normal, which goes here. Now, yeah, fix now because it was not denoted as to be a normal map. So here for our enemy, when we import the normal map, we need to say it's a normal map. And that was the issue that was showing here. And enemy AO, we're gonna put that right here. And for the matcap, we are gonna filter. Here it is, matcap skin. Voila, same one as what we have for the player. So exactly the same. So it's in the player folder. So you can click on this select sign, or actually select button. So let me go here, clear. You see, you can click on this select button. It will open also a pop-up window, as you can see here, and you can filter for your the textures instead of dragging and dropping them. So that is another way how you can add textures to the material. And voila, this is our enemy. So the next thing that we are gonna do for the enemy is create his attacks and his animator controller. But before I do that, I'm gonna go in enemies animations here, and I'm gonna duplicate all the animations that we are going to use. So we have attack 1, 2, and 3. As you can see here, I'm going to duplicate all of them. So attack 2 now and attack 1. And I am going to rename them. I'm duplicating them so that I can rename them here. And I'm going to call this one. So the duplicate enemy attack 1. For attack 2, we're simply going to paste the name. And instead of 1, we're going to say 2. And for the 3, same thing, but 3. And again, you duplicate that by clicking here, so selecting one of these animations, for example, attack 1, clicking on the drop-down list, and this is the clip of the animation. So select the animation, click on the drop-down list, and this is the clip. So you will see this right here as the clip. For every single one of these, you're going to select the clip, hold Command and press D if you're on Mac, or Control D on Windows, or simply go here, edit and duplicate, and you can also see the shortcut right here. I'm not 100% sure if it's Control D on Windows, but I'm assuming that it is. Anyways, you can see it here under edit, and voila. So we're gonna duplicate the attack. So 1, 2, 3. The next one is our death. So enemy death also, Command D, duplicated. We also have knock down, so actually knock down, and we have here knock down and an up. So we are gonna knock down up. This one is that we're gonna duplicate, and we're also gonna knock down and here let me go knock down. Well, we're also gonna duplicate this one, and I'm gonna call this one enemy death. So did I type it right? Yes, I did. This one is gonna be enemy knock down, and what was here? So it's down, and here I'm gonna say enemy knock down down. Here I'm gonna say knock down end. So enemy knock down end, and here I'm gonna say enemy knock down up. We will see for what we're going to use every single one of these. We're also going to have stand up. So this one right here, duplicate the stand up animation. And the last one is our enemy walk. So let me just find it here. Here it is, enemy walk, duplicate that one as well. So here we're going to have enemy stand up. And last one is our enemy walk. Not wall, but enemy walk. Voila! So these are the animations that we are going to duplicate. So now let's go here in our enemy folder, and I'm gonna simply right click here and create a new animator controller, and this one is going to be our enemy controller. So I'm gonna say here enemy controller, and we're going to attach it on the child game object. You see this enemy rig? This is where we're gonna attach it. So drag and drop it on this one. And by the way, let me just right click, create an empty game object. This one is going to be our enemy. And let me take this, so 3.93, so 3.93 for our y, we can leave it at 0, so I'm gonna say here 0, and also copy this one, negative 0.81 for the z. And the last thing is 90 for the rotation, so 90 for the rotation. And I'm gonna take the enemy rig, set it to 0 like this, and put it as a child of the enemy game object. And actually, this one needs to go like this. So here, and now put it here. So now when I rotate it, voila. And if I rotate this one, it goes perfectly well. Now, what are we gonna do here? First of all, let me change the enemy rig to enemy child, and we're going to save this one as a prefab. Now we need to do the same thing as with our player. See, we have our player game object and we have the child, so we attached the player or the child on the player. Same thing we're doing with the enemy. We need to have it as a prefab, and here in the prefabs, I'm gonna go and create a new folder, enemy prefab. And simply drag and drop this one. So drag and drop the enemy, voila. And we are good to go. So going back here for the enemy child, I'm going to select it, and we are going to create the animations that we need. Let me move the any state here. The entry state is gonna be the idle one. So here, new state, I'm going to call this one idle. And for the idle, we are gonna use our enemy idle animation. So here, let me filter for enemy idle. Here it is, voila. And we're gonna have the walk animation as well. So I'm gonna right click and create an empty state, and this one is going to be our walk. So going here, walk. Of course, for this one, we're gonna filter for enemy walk. And voila, we're gonna take one that we have duplicated. So don't take enemy one underscore walk, simply use enemy walk. This is the one that we want. The one that we have duplicated, if you remember a moment ago, in the models and enemy, in animations. So these animations that are the ones that we're gonna use. Of course, some of them that we did not duplicate, like the idle animation, we use that one. But those that are duplicated, we're gonna use them instead of the original ones. Now, before we continue, I'm gonna go here and click on the plus button, and we are going to have a boolean for the movement. So here I'm gonna say movement, and we are gonna have a trigger for the attack one. So let me just rename this one attack 1 like this. Click on the plus sign and add another trigger. This is going to be attack 2. Click on the plus sign, another trigger, and this is going to be attack 3. We're also going to have knockdown, so click on the plus. Every other parameter is going to be a trigger except for the movement, which is a boolean. So we're going to have knockdown like this. Plus and trigger stand up like this. We're also going to have a hit. So I'll go here, trigger, we're going to say hit, and the last trigger is going to be death. So here, D-A-A-T-H. Anyways, moving forward, I'm hoping that I spelled that correctly. I already see you guys in the comment section. Oh, correction, that is not spelled correct. Well, I don't care. We're going to continue with the tutorial. Anyways, so we have the idle, we have the walk. We're also going to have our attack functions, or actually attack animations. So what I'm going to do here is create an empty, and this one is going to be our attack 1. So attack 1. Duplicate it, and it's gonna be attack 2. So the duplicate one is gonna be attack 2. Duplicate the attack 2, it's gonna be attack 3. But let me just move them here. So attack 1, 2, and this is gonna be attack 3. So attack 3, and let me just see what we have here. So voila. Need to position these animations so we can see them all clearly. We are also going to have a hit and a death animation. So here I'm going to say empty, and this one is going to be our death animation. Here we're going to create another empty, and this one is going to be our hit. So going here, we're going to have a hit. Now we are also going to have our knock animations. So right here, I'm going to create a new state, and this one is going to be knock up. So knock up and duplicate it. So come on, duplicate it. And the next one is going to be knock down. And we're also going to have our knock end. So knock up, knock down. And here I'm going to say empty. And this one is going to be knock end. So knock end. And we're gonna have a stand up. So create empty, and voila, this is going to be our stand up animation. So these are all the animations that we are going to have. Now let us connect them. So for the attack one, you can assume, so I'm gonna go here, any state, and we're gonna go to attack 1, any state we're gonna go to attack 2, and any state attack 3. Same principle as we did for our player. I'm gonna select them. Now here, the trigger is gonna be attack 1. For attack 1, we're not gonna have a fixed duration, set it on 0, not gonna have an exit time. Attack 2, same thing, so no transition duration. And also, let me just go here, and we're gonna have attack 2. Same thing as we did with our player. So same thing as what we did with our player. So I'm going to click here, and for the trigger or parameter is going to be attack 3. Here I'm going to say 0, fixed duration, uncheck that. And of course here we're going to go from idle to walk, and from walk to idle. And the parameter for that is going to be, so let me select this. The parameter is going to be movement. So when it's true, we're going to go from idle to walk. And here we are gonna set the exit time to 0 and uncheck it basically, and the transition duration is gonna be 0.1. Same thing is gonna happen with our walk to idle. So the condition is gonna be movement, but when it's equal to false, uncheck the exit time, and 0.1 for the transition duration. Now when it comes to these animations here, so we're gonna go from attack to idle. What did I just do? So select the attack, go transition to idle, attack 2. From every single one of these attacks, we're going to go to the idle. So here, we're going to set the exit time to 1, but transition duration, we are going to set that at 0 for all 3 of these. And of course, you can experiment with that. So exit time 1, transition duration 0, uncheck the fixed duration. Check it here, select the transition, exit time is gonna be 1, and basically for all 3 of these. So for all 3, and this can be a practice for you to try to create this on your own, or actually to fix these transitions on your own. You can practice that, you can change the values, but I'm gonna set them here to exit time 0, or actually exit time 1 for all 3 of them, and transition duration is gonna be 0. Now we're also gonna go from any state to hit, meaning when we get hit, we're gonna go there and I'm gonna select it. The parameter or the condition is gonna be hit. The exit time is gonna be 0 and transition duration is gonna be equal to 0.1. Now from hit, we are gonna be able to go to the idle animation. So when the hit finishes, we're gonna go to the idle animation and basically exit time is gonna be 1 and transition duration is going to be equal to 0 when that happens. We are also gonna go to the death animation. So here from any state to death, and I'm gonna select it. Now transition duration is simply gonna be 0.1, exit time is not gonna exist. And the condition for that is a trigger called death, as you can already imagine. And we are also gonna go into our knock state. So from any state, we're gonna go into knockdown. I'm gonna preview those animations right now so you can see why we have knock up, knock down, and knock end. Now the transition here is gonna be 0.1, and here we are gonna use knockdown. Now from knock up to knock down, we're simply gonna have an exit time. We're not gonna have a condition. So select it. And here we're gonna set 1 for exit time, 0 for transition duration, and uncheck the fixed duration. Right click on knockdown and move it to the knock end. Again, here we're gonna have an exit time at 1 and transition duration 0. Uncheck has exit time, and voila. Or actually, excuse me, check the exit time. So exit time will be 1 and transition duration, uncheck the fixed duration. This is what I wanted to say. And then we're gonna go from knock end to stand up. Now, same thing from knock end to stand up. Here, let me just go knock end, stand up. Here, we are gonna say, actually, we're gonna add the stand up here. So I'm gonna say here, stand up. So we're gonna have a stand up. We're not gonna have an exit time, so I'm gonna uncheck it, and transition duration is gonna be equal to 0.1. And from the stand up, we're simply gonna go to idle. So let me move it here, and voila. From stand up, we're gonna go to idle. Exit time will be 1, transition duration 0, and voila. And we did not add here motion, so what we need to do is add motions here. Now, as you can see, we added for the walk, we added for the idle. For the hit, let me filter here for enemy hit. So it's gonna be, let me just check it here. So it's enemy hit 1. So enemy hit 1 is for the hit. Did we add for attack? No. So filter here for enemy attack 1. Filter here for enemy attack 2. So attack 2, here it is. And here we have our enemy attack 3. So enemy attack 3. The ones that we created, by the way. And for the death here, we're gonna search for enemy death. Here it is. Now here we have our knock up. So here I'm gonna simply filter for up, and we're gonna say enemy knockdown up. Here is our down. Enemy, so enemy knockdown down, and knock end. So knock down end. Here it is. And lastly, we have our stand up. So here we're gonna say enemy stand up. So I believe we attached all the animations that we have, and let me just clear everything here, these warnings. So this is gonna be our enemy animator. Now you see we have a lot of animations. We will see how we are going to play them. And by the way, you can play with these transitions conditions. I already told you that that's the best way to learn. But what I did is for every exit I set, or for every animation that goes back to the idle, hit, attacks, and the stand up, the exit time is 1, and uncheck the fixed duration and transition duration will be 0. So this is basically what we are doing. And in order for us to understand why we have knock up, down, and end, I'm gonna preview those animations quickly. So I'm gonna go into the animator here and select the enemy child. Pay attention here when I select enemy knock up. This is that animation. Pay attention to the enemy. This is the knock up. You see, he goes basically up to the middle. You see, this is knock up. This is knock down. You see, pay attention. He falls down. You see, this is what happens. I'm gonna preview the animation. You see, he goes up and he starts falling down, and then here knock end is where he actually falls down. You see, this is where he actually falls down. So basically this animation comes in 3 parts. That is the reason why we did it like this. So it comes in 3 parts. And that's why we had to do it like this. That's why we had to, you know, have enemy knock up and then enemy knock and knock down and so on and so forth. You get my point. Now what we need to do is go here on the enemy child and attach the animation, which is the character animation. But of course, before we proceed, let me select the enemy and attach all the components that we need. So under add component, we're gonna add a capsule collider. Again, capsule collider, not 2D. And I'm gonna change the radius to 0.3, 1.8 for the height, and the offset on the y-axis is gonna be 0.85. Now, what is this offset? I've done this in numerous of my tutorials. So let me go here and basically let me see where is. So this is the enemy child. The enemy child needs to go back here. So yeah, 0, 0, 0 for X, Y, and Z on the enemy child. So this is what or how it looks like. Now this offset, maybe we can also change the radius a bit more. So radius can be, I don't know, maybe 0.2. Yeah, 0.2 can be the radius, I think. This is okay. And the offset is basically this. Pay attention now. You see the collider? So this is the collider. If I offset it on the Z, pay attention, it goes away from the player. Basically, we're just setting him to fit perfectly to the player, or in this case, it's the enemy. Now here, I'm also gonna attach a rigid body. So voila, I'm gonna freeze the X, Y, and Z axis. We can set here the mass to 3 and we are good to go. Now let me go here into the assets and scripts, and I'm gonna right click and create a folder for enemy scripts. We are gonna create our enemy movement or enemy controller script. So I'm gonna go here, create a C# script. So enemy movement. That's how I'm gonna call it. It's gonna control the movement, it's gonna control the attack, but I'm gonna call movement, it does not matter. So let me go here and attach it on the enemy, click on overrides and apply all. Before we proceed to this script, so I'm gonna open it here in Visual Studio. Before we start to edit this script, we also need to go back inside of our animation. So character animation, and add more animations for the enemy. So what I'm gonna do here, character animation, all of this here is gonna stay the same, but right here I'm gonna say enemy animations. And the first enemy animation is gonna be public void play, or actually enemy attack, excuse me. So enemy attack, which is gonna take an integer attack like this. And we will see for what we're gonna use it, or how we're going to use it. Basically, we're simply going to pass here a number, and we're going to test here if our attack is equal to 0. Then we are going to call our anim set trigger, and we're going to call here animations. So actually, animation tags dot attack 1 trigger. Come on, man, why are you joking with me? Attack 1 trigger. So we're going to duplicate and paste it here. So if the attack is equal to 1, then we're going to have attack 2 trigger. And we're going to paste one more time. If attack is equal to 2, we are going to have the attack 3 trigger. Now, of course, you can do it if it's equal to 1, 2, or 3. It does not matter. The only thing that matters here is that we call attack 1 trigger, attack 2 trigger, and attack 3 trigger based on the value of the attack that we pass here. So this is enemy attack. What is the next thing that we need? Well, we need here a public void play and Y. Why are you doing this to me? So play idle animation. In the play idle animation, we're simply gonna say anim, and we're gonna call here play like this, and we're gonna call animation tags dot idle animation. It's gonna start playing the idle animation. We will see for what we're gonna use it, but simply know that when we call this function, it's gonna play the animation. And by the way, you see here animator play. When we pass the name of the animation, in this case we pass the idle, because if I go here in tags, you see here in our animation tags, and here is our idle animation. The name is idle, which is same as if we go here in animator, it's the state name. You see idle here, this one, you see the name is idle. So when you call play on the animator, as we did here, so it's character animations, let me move it here. When you call play and you pass a string name, it will play the animation or a motion with that name. Now you need to pay attention that the names match up. So if you type the name idle and you use lowercase I in the code, then it will not work, assuming that the capital I is used in the initial name. So the next thing that we have here is a public void knockdown. And for our knockdown, we're simply going to call anim set trigger. And here we're going to call animation tags dot knockdown trigger. Here we're going to call public void stand up. And in the stand up, we're going to call anim dot set trigger animation tags dot stand up trigger. We're also going to have hit and death. So public void hit. Why are you feeling this if I'm not asking you to do it? So hit, and here we're going to say anim set trigger animation, so animation tags dot hit trigger. And the last one is a public void death, and I spell it right, so it's death like this. Anim dot set trigger animation tags death trigger. Voila, finally we have finished with our animations. So in our enemy movement, we're gonna get that, we're gonna animate the enemy, and we're gonna make him move. So the first thing that we need here is a private player, or actually we called it character animation, which I'm gonna call enemy anim like this. We're also gonna have here a private rigid body, which I'm gonna call my body. We're gonna have a public float, which I'm gonna call speed, which is gonna be equal to, I don't know, let's say 5f. We will change it later on if we see a need to, because I set it to be public. We're also gonna have a private transform player target like this. Also, we're gonna have here a public float attack underscore distance, so distance, which is by default going to be equal to 1f. We're also going to have a private float chase player, so chase underscore player underscore after underscore attack. This is going to be equal to 1 as well. And we're also going to have here a private float current attack time. And I'm going to leave that like this because we're going to have a private float default attack time, which by default is 2. And we're going to have a private bool follow player and a private bool. I'm simply going to say here, comma, attack player. Now, if you are new to Unity, you don't know what this is. Essentially, this is the same thing as if we type private bool follow player, then here private bool attack player. But if we use here comma and then declare the name of another variable, it's a shortcut to writing that, so we don't need to type below private bool. We can do that for the floats as well. So I can say here, instead of typing this, I can say here comma, and I can say chase after attack is equal to 2, for example, and this also works. Then we have 2 variables type float with different names. So it's not only for the boolean, it also works for the floats as well. Now in the awake function, so create here the awake function, we're gonna call our enemy anim is gonna be equal to get component in children, same as with our player, and we're gonna call the character animation. Now the same thing we're doing as with the player, because again our script is attached on the enemy child, which is right here. It's not attached on the enemy. The enemy child is the one holding the animation, so this is where we are attaching that script, and that's why we are using get component in children, which will search in the children to get the component. Now for my body, we're gonna say get component, and we're gonna say rigid body component. Now the rigid body is attached on the enemy, as you can see here. The whole point with this getting components, it depends on where the script is attached. So this enemy movement script is attached on this enemy game object. If we say get component like this here and pass the component name, it will search on that game object, on him only. It will not search on his child's or child game objects. Even if he has thousands of them, it will only search on that game object. So if it has a rigid body, it will get that component and store it here in my body. Now the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to say player target is equal to game object find with tag, and we're going to pass here tags. So tags dot player tag dot transform like this. Now what's important to do when we do things like this is that you make sure that the player game object, so select the player, and by default Unity creates a player tag. Here it is. So click on these tags here. So make sure, select the top parent game object, so the top parent, the player, not the player child, and click on these tags here in the inspector, click on the drop down list, click on the player tag. By default it is created. If for some reason you don't have it, click on add tags. It will take you here where it says list empty. Click on the plus sign, type here player tag, click save button, and it will save it. Then you can go back, select the player again, click on the drop down list, click on player tag, and make sure that you override the save so that that applies to the prefab as well. So when we are searching a game object with the tag, make sure that you tag the game object. This is really important, or otherwise it will not work. And also make sure that the tag name here matches the tag name here. So it's player with capital P, so you need to make sure that here it is player, as you can see, with capital P, or otherwise, again, I'm repeating, it will not work. In the start function, we're going to say follow player is equal to true to allow our enemy to follow the player, and the current, so current attack time is going to be equal to the default attack time. This will mean that the enemy will attack the player as soon as we arrive at his location, which we will see in a second. So below the update right here, we are going to create a function void follow target, and this is how we are going to follow our player. And of course we are going to call this one in the update. So I'm going to call here follow player, and actually I need to say it like this. Voila. Now what, or actually follow target, excuse me. So here it's follow target. It amazes me how quickly I can forget things. Anyways, what we're gonna do here, first of all, if here we're gonna say follow player, and here I'm gonna say return. But I'm gonna say here an exclamation mark, which means if we are not allowed to follow the player, then we will return. And we already saw that return will exit out of the function. The code below will not be executed. And here follow target. Now inside of the start function, as we saw a moment ago, we're setting follow player to true. And pay attention here, we are testing with an exclamation mark, which is essentially same if we are saying if follow player is equal to false. So simply add an exclamation mark here, like this, and this means exclamation mark will make what's after it the opposite. So if this is true, the exclamation mark will make it false, because it's the opposite. And if it's true, or actually if it's false, the exclamation mark will make it what? Well, it will make it the opposite, which is true. So when we hit this, when it's true, if we are not, so if we are not supposed to follow the player, we will return, and return will exit out of the function. But if we are supposed to follow the player, what we're going to do? Well, we're going to test here if our vector3.distance, so if the distance between the transform position, which is the current position of the enemy, and the player target, so here I'm going to say target, actually player target dot position, if that is greater than the attack distance, then we're going to follow the player. So if the distance, and basically I'm just gonna draw that, which is much easier. So let's pretend something like this. I'm gonna clear here. Let's say our enemy is here. Let's say our player is here. This vector3 distance will calculate the distance between their positions, and it will return this length. If this length is greater than the attack distance, then it means that we should follow the player. We're still not in the range where we should perform our attack. So when that happens, we are first gonna rotate the enemy towards the player. So we're gonna say here transform look at. which will make the transform rotate towards the player target. If I hover over this look at, rotates the transform so that the forward vector points to this position. Now, what is the forward vector? If I go here and select the enemy, and pay attention to the enemy here. I've selected him. I'm gonna go in the tool for arrow, which is the move tool. As you can see here, this blue line or blue arrow is the forward vector, which means if we move him forward, he moves forward. If we move it backward, he moves backwards. But the point here is this is his forward, looking at the forward side, so to say. So this look at will make him look at the forward, or make his forward look at this direction, which means if our player is here, the forward of this enemy will look in this direction. This is what we are saying in our code. So first of all, this will rotate the player. Next, we are going to say my body velocity is going to be equal to transform forward multiplied with the speed. So we are simply using the velocity of our player, which is speed over time. We talked about this. If something is not clear, post it in the comment section below. I will answer it. Transform forward means the blue axis. Again, it's the same blue axis, this one right here, which means move in the forward direction with this speed. So multiply with the speed, moving in the forward direction. And then we're going to test here if my body dot velocity dot magnitude, actually I'm going to say here square root magnitude. If it's not equal to 0, we are going to animate our character. Now, what does this mean? If I hover over the square root, so I'm simply going to do it here. So my body velocity square root magnitude returns the squared length of this vector. What is the length of that vector? Well, the length is the following. If let's say this is that vector, so this is x, this is y, this is z, and all of these lengths, that is the length of that vector. So here, here, and here. So this is here, and this is here. That is the length of the vector, but it will return it squared. What's important here to know is, if we are not moving, so if we're not adding velocity to the rigid body, this square root magnitude will be equal to 0. So if we are not moving the character on x, y, or z, this will not return any value. Actually, it will return 0, which means if it's not equal to 0, that means we are moving. So when we are moving, we are going to call our enemy anim walk to be equal to true. And this will animate our enemy. Now here we're going to say else. And of course, it's going to be else if. We are going to test if the vector3.distance between the transform position, which is the position of the enemy, and player target.position, the position of the player, is less than or equal to the attack distance. Now, if this happens, and don't worry here, we don't need to put else to turn off the animation, because it depends on this if statement. So if the distance between the player and the enemy, or actually the enemy and the player, is greater than the attack distance, we will definitely move. In fact, we can also omit this here because we will start moving. But I'm just going to put it there as a precaution so that you will get in the habit to precaution your code, so to say, actually, or moving forward now. So here, if the distance between our enemy and the player is less than or equal to the attack distance, now here we're going to say my body velocity is equal to vector3.0. This will stop the movement automatically. So right away, it will stop the movement of our enemy. Because again here, the 0 means 0, 0, 0 for x, y, and z. That means velocity is the speed, or speed over time, so how the player is moving. When we set it to 0, that means not moving. So the value is 0. And here we're going to call enemy anim to set the walk to false, because here we are not walking, we're stopping. And here we're going to say follow player is equal to false and attack player is equal to true. Voila. Now, follow player here is equal to false will mean that this right here will not be executed anymore, because now it's equal to false, and exclamation mark will make it what's the opposite. So it will make it the opposite. False, opposite of false is true, which means, again, this right here will be equal to true, and we will say here return, as you see, and we will not execute the code below. But now we need to create another function, which is going to be void attack, like this. And here I'm gonna type attack, and in the update function we also need to call this one, so I'm gonna say here attack like this, and practically we can use the follow target and we can put it in the fixed update because we are using rigid body to move the game object, so we can put that in the fixed update and attack will be in the update. So when it comes to the attack function here, on top we're going to do the same thing as we did for our follow target. So here I'm going to copy this and paste it, but here I'm going to say exclamation mark and attack player. So if we are not supposed to attack player, then we will not attack the player, as you can see here. So if attack player is equal to false, the exclamation mark will make it the opposite, which is true. And this if statement will be true and this code will be hit, which means return, and it will exit outside of the function. So if we should not attack the player, basically this is what we are talking here, or telling the computer. So if we should not attack the player, exit the function. Simple as that. Now below, what we're gonna do is we're gonna say current attack time plus equals to time.delta time. I've done this also in my other tutorials. I've done this in the tutorial for the first-person shooter survival. I've done this in the tutorial for our 3D battle game, and I'm gonna do it here because it's so effective and I'm teaching you to reuse your code. There is no need to invent something that you already have. Now here we're gonna say if the current attack time is greater than the default attack time, we are going to attack. So we're gonna say here enemy anim.enemy attack, and we're gonna use a random, so a random.range between 0 and 3. Now of course if you go back here inside of our enemy or character anim for enemy attack, you see here we have this. So we have the enemy attack, we have an attack for the integer, which is going to serve as an index, and we are using here random range from 0 to 3. Now, I'm going to leave it here like this, but my advice to you, if you're going to have a game where you are going to have multiple attacks, maybe you're going to have updates and so on and so forth, create a class like this that's going to store all general variables or variables that are going to be used in the game or in the whole project itself. So instead of calling it here like random range 0 and 3, you can call it something like, I don't know, random generator, and you can add dot, I don't know, minimum value. So minimum attack min and attack max. So something like that. And they will be also numbers, but you will not put them here like this. You will not hard code them. Same as what we talked for our, if I go here, player movement, what we talked here for the horizontal axis. Don't hard code it here, put it in a class, in a separate folder, and then use it from there. So you would use something like this, because if I add another, why is this important? Let's say we currently have here 3 attacks for the enemy, which is true. So we have attack trigger 1, 2, and 3. But what if we update our game and we add more attacks for the enemy? Now we have 5 attacks, and here we have from 0 up to 3. This is what I'm talking about. Then we need to go here and change that value. But if we do that on one place, then we will only need to do that one place in the case you're putting this code in multiple places in your project. Anyways, random range will return, and this is important to know. If I hover over, you see when I type 0 and 3 without F at the end on any of these, it is going to denote this number that's going to be returned as an integer. And if I hover over the range, you will see int random range, int minimum, int maximum. Why is this important to know? Well, it's important because if you read the description, returns a random integer number between minimum inclusive and maximum exclusive. What does that mean? It means it will return a random between these two numbers, but it will include 0 and it will not include 3. That means it will return 0, 1, or 2. It will not be able to return 3 when it's an integer. But if we say here F and here F, then for floats, the floats are all inclusive, which means this function will be able to return 0, 1, 2, and 3 if it's a float. But if it's an integer, as you just see here, if it's an integer, then it will be, the last number will be not included, which means 0, 1, or 2. And well, look at that here. We are testing if attack is equal to 0, if it's equal to 1, or if it's equal to 2. We're not testing if it's equal to 3. This is what I'm talking about. So if you were to put here to test if 1, 2, and 3, so here instead of 0 you will say 1 and here 2 and here 3, then you will put here 1 and 4 because 1 will be included, 2 will be included, and 3, but 4 will not be included. So you get my point. You can print that in the console to see for yourself. Anyways, if the current attack time is greater than the default attack time, we will attack here with our animation, and here we're gonna say current attack time is equal to 0 to reset the value so that we can calculate it again here and then start attacking. And below we're gonna test if the vector 3 distance between our transform position, which is the players, or actually excuse me, the position of the enemy and the player target that position, if it's greater than the attack distance plus chase player after attack. So we're gonna add a little time for the player or give him a little bit space before we start chasing him. That's why we are adding to the chase or adding to the attack distance plus chase player after attack. And if that is true, we're gonna say here attack player is equal to false, but follow player, so follow player is now equal to true. Well, what this means is the following. Let's say if our player is here like this, and this is the distance where the enemy can come to attack, and this is the enemy, he came to that distance, and he attacks, so this is that distance. But this plus chase player after attack, it will allow the player, so in this case, if the player moves 1 inch or 1 centimeter, the enemy will start chasing. But if we say here plus chase player after attack, that means this distance plus the distance here, which can be a little larger distance like this, and then the player needs to go up to here for the enemy to start chasing him. And this is what we are doing. And we can test this out. So if I go back here in Unity and wait for Unity to recover, so let me just go here. If I hit the play button, let's go and see the enemy. And the enemy is very close, and this is not what we're gonna do. So the speed, I'm gonna say 1.8, and let's say the attack distance 1.3. And by the way, you see here we have these receivers, which are actually so we need to go here, enemy child, and select all of these animations. So we have one in the walk, so delete all of these, click on these events and delete them. We will add our own later on. Again, the creator of these assets used these events in his project. I did not bother to remove them, so we're gonna remove them like this. So knock down, so we don't have here, knock end, we don't have here on the death, we don't have, but I believe we have in the attack, yes we do. So select these, simply click on them. So these animations here that you see, these are animation events, and these are here in case you don't see. We will create later our own, so simply click on them, and what am I doing? So yeah, this is what I want. So hide, anyways, click on it and remove. Click on it, remove, click on it, remove. And you remove it by the delete key. So select it or click on it, delete key, click on it, and delete key, click on it, and delete key. And one more time for attack 1 so that we don't get any errors for the receiver. We will see later on what this is. If you did not watch my previous tutorials, don't worry about that. We will see, but for now, just remove them, and that is that. So I'm gonna hit the play button now, and we're gonna pay attention. You see the enemy comes close to the player, and voila, you see, and he attacked right away. And now he's waiting and attacked right away. He attacked with the foot, now he attacked with the left hand, and now he attacked with the right hand. This is what I wanted to show.